We really have a high-powered panel. I've known two gentlemen on the stage for a long time. I'll get to know you a little bit. We have an investor. We have three CEOs. I would call it a manel because there is only male panelists. Manel, I wish there were more women leaders on the panel, and I told Priyanshi next time make sure that you have more women leaders in our juries and in our conferences. Try to get to a 50-50. Let me start by asking each one of them an opening comment on where we are in terms of our efforts and consciousness on sustainability and how deep is the commitment. Let me start with Mainak. Mainak has led many large companies, built businesses on the back of very venerable brands, and he's an author. So let me start by asking Mainak, do Indian CEOs think about sustainability in a deep way, like they think about their quarterly results, they think about market share, they think about margins?
No, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Batra, for having me here with some amazing leaders. See, I always believe any change and any realization starts with ourselves. So I'll tell you a bit about my journey. When I began my career, I think 26 or 27 years ago, as a young brand manager, I didn't even think about sustainability. It was all about building brands, market share, building businesses. When I fast forward today, and I look at young kids joining our organization straight out of campus, it's very much top of mind for them. It's something they think about, it's something they challenge, it's something they question. So I think a lot of change is being hardwired by how not the environment or the business environment or what CEOs say, but just broader awareness among people, especially among younger people, which manifests itself into how consumers choose brands, how young employees choose companies they work for. And I think so certainly we've come a long way. I think the awareness is there, the sense of urgency is there. The one thing I would personally like to see happen more, which we can chat about more, is how does it just get much more hardwired into a business imperative? I have seen a lot of leaders talk about, are we red, green, yellow on market share, sales, profit? How can ESG measures be up there along with them? And that's something I'd love to see more of.
Okay. Let me get to you, Robert. Robert, how did you get initiated into this in terms of your personal thinking and then kind of percolating it down to the organization and weaving it in the strategy of the organization?
So I think it's pretty similar. What happens is I got, of course, kids. Yeah. So when you have kids bring in very often new ideas back home. And let's say the first discussion started when my son, he was a fan of a special branded electric car, and we were looking at a new decision, and he started saying, okay, you have to change your behavior. Yeah. I think the other thing which contributed to it is you read a lot also in the newspaper, you read a lot of scientific reports, etc. You experience lots of changes in your environment. Let's say, I know a number of people who have grown up in areas who have experienced winter with snow, who are not experiencing that anymore. You spoke about summer coming up 4 months earlier in advance. I think all those things together actually articulate this very nicely. And when it comes to actually changing, it has to start with changing with yourself, and then the next topic is to change the people around you. Yeah? So it is first the people, and then, of course, how do organizations work? They set themselves targets. You have to be able to measure those targets. And then it works just like the other KPIs we all track. That's the only way to make it happen.
Again, in terms of really, there is this old saying which I first learned in the business school 29 years back. Whatever you can measure and monitor, you can improve. Yeah. You know. So clearly, in terms of sustainability, what is its impact on business? How does it really help the planet and help a long-term existence? So lots of companies on their balance sheets have an ESG scorecard. they have a sustainability scorecard. And that's why in the last 5 years, along with Sustain Lab Paris, we started ranking the top 500 companies. And again, the gentleman from Sri City, I was not there in most, but I know a lot about Sri City, are building the community, if I may use that word, in a very sustainable way. But generally, even the new cities that are being built in India could do better in the way they're being planned. And another thing I feel in India, when we plan something, we can be a little more longer term in our horizon. Just to give you the KL airport, which was built 15 years back or 18 years back?
Longer, yeah.
20, maybe 20. Right now also it can look at another 25, 30 years. We built the Delhi airport, it already will like, of course it's India's growth, so those numbers that we're getting. But I think we can take a little longer view on things. The infrastructure that we build has to be built for 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now. Coming to you, Samir, you have a vantage point where we are talking to startups that want to change the world. They want to make it a better place to live in. They're looking at solutions and they're bringing in services and products that really make a better world, a more sustainable world. Do you think these startups will be able to, these new ideas, these new companies will become mainstream and be able to help companies like Nippon, like Siemens to be more sustainable?
Sure, no, I definitely think so. I think innovation is a very important aspect of how one will meet sustainability goals. And we are working with startups who want to change the world. And everything begins with a starting point of saying, how do you innovate? I think one of the earlier companies we had invested in is Wabag, which today counts itself as the 4th largest water company in the world. We have a company called Vari Energies, which today is the largest panel manufacturer in the country. We had Ion Energies, which is again doing battery management systems for EVs. So there are examples of companies which can scale, and the objective of what we do is to support innovations globally as long as they solve India's problems. So our focus is India in terms of saying, which are the companies best positioned to address India problems at India's cost points? And that technology can be anywhere in the world. For example, we have just invested in a company in the UK, which has a biotransformation of plastics, which is one of the major problems in India. And if you have a technology that can, within 230 days, break the molecules of hydrocarbons and basically just be effectively converted into biomass, that is an interesting solution. So we want to bring it to India, see how it works. India is going to continue to be a big user of coal. There is an interesting technology called torrefaction, which improves efficiencies of boilers by 7%. Those are the kind of, we have a company in India which is doing effluent treatment using electrocoagulation technologies. So this is wastewater reuse. I think Sun City mentioned ZLD as
Sri City.
Sri City.
There's Sun City in Gurgaon too, promoted by Lakshmi Goyal.
My apologies. So the ZLD technologies are you have to look at multiple solutions. So, the electrocoagulation is one, but there are many aspects, and we are excited. I mean, we have seen 2,000 entrepreneurs chasing or looking at companies in this space, and finding the right companies which can scale and solve problems at a global scale and for India is what we look for. So our assessment is twofold. It has to have an economic return, but it has to have a positive externality and impact. If either of the two criteria are not met, we would not invest.
Thank you, Samir. Clearly, what you are doing does build a segue for the future in terms of having a more sustainable world. Mahesh, what are your opening comments in terms of your own personal trials with sustainability and how you're making sure that at your leadership level, you're seeding thoughts, ideas, projects that lead to a more sustainable world?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. In fact, I head the decorative business of Nippon Paint, and also I am the co-chairperson for the Indian Green Building Council Chennai chapter. So let me first talk about the paint industry, and most of you, or even if I am not in the paint industry, I will also be in the same plane like you. Paint always considered as a color and protection, right? I mean, that's been the perception, like, and our consumers' involvement into paint, buying the paint is still very, very nascent. But over the years, it has changed. Today, paints have come out of that, and now today you have paints which can purify the indoor air, right? And it can be antiviral properties, and it has heat-resistant properties, very high solar reflective index, which will give you a thermal comfort inside your home, which is the most essence for your sustainability of your energy savings, you know. And that's what the paint industry is doing. And as far as the manufacturing process is concerned, paint industry is itself is a very process-driven industry, wherein there are a lot of process improvements have come in. And you know, that has helped us to reduce our energy. And I can tell you that all the paint companies today, at least the organized ones, in our monthly dashboards or monthly balance scorecard, we have a sustainability report which also is shared. We just measure it. So like what we said, you know, first you start, understand where it is, and then start measuring it and improve upon every year on year. So for me, my sustainability person gives me this report on a monthly basis. That's where we stand today as an industry as a whole. And if you see the paints, what you buy today are very low in VOC, no heavy metals, and generally a paint which you applied on the wall or any substrate, it dries by evaporation of solvents. You know, so if you don't, earlier days, a paint has to smell, you know. A nail polish has to smell, otherwise it's not a nail polish or it's not a paint. But today the change,
Never use the nail polish, so wouldn't know.
I'm just talking to those young ladies or very gorgeous ladies here who are very fond of that. But today, paints don't smell, even while painting and after painting, which means they don't emit any gases. Or to what I understand as sustainability is start using products which emit less carbon, that's it. If you start doing it, I think you are there, you know, running closer to the net zero targets what India has set for itself, right? And my other role, what I do right now is the co-chairperson for the Indian Green Building Council, Chennai chapter. And IGBC, Indian Green Building Council, we call it as IGBC, is one of the most progressive. And today, we are the second largest green footprint across the globe. We have about 10.4 billion square feet of green footprint, and I mean, next to maybe US. And we have about 13,000 projects which are certified. And IGBC has about 32 ratings today. Name it, you have a rating for that. Like Sri City is one of the, they show that IGBC. So what is that it happens is like these type of meetings, and of course media plays a vital role in driving the sustainability. The more the media talks about it, the movement becomes more aggressive, more intensified, right? So as we speak, from tomorrow onwards, we have the Global Green Building Congress in Chennai, which is being hosted by Chennai actually. It's for 3 days, and the topic is advancing net zero through decarbonization. And as a paint industry, we participate in it. We have green paints which are certified as green by the CII, Green Pro. And very simply saying is, while making the paint, the carbon footprint is lesser by 20%. While applying the paint also, it emits less carbon. So that's where we stand as an industry today. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to at least share this information to all. And by this, I think we want to spread the news.
I have to tell you a story. I started my career after business school in real estate. So I don't know if you know Kamal Meter?
Yes, I know.
Parpur. So I met him in 90s.
Sorry to interrupt you, since I thoughts are going off. I'm a green fella.
Yeah, because...
Yeah, and that was given by Mr. Kamal Mittal.
Yeah. So I met him in 96. My boss was an Australian. I worked for 5 years before I turned an entrepreneur. And he invited me to Parpur Business Center, and he said to me, you know, I mean, I said, your rates are too expensive. So he said to me, no, these are the plants, you breathe better. And I said, who will pay so much money to be in this building? And I met him a couple of years back, and I meet him at least once a year. His son and son-in-law, both my friends. And I realized he was ahead of time. He built a green building 30 years back or 35 years back, and he charged a premium for that because he said he was the first one to educate me in '96 on particulate matter. I didn't know what PM stood for, except the Prime Minister, right? Right. So, and today, look at what's happening. You know, I'd be happy to pay more and be in his building.
His office is the greenest, purest office in Delhi.
Yes.
He has got about 30,000 indoor plants. So he lives, or whoever works in the office, breathe pure air. Pure air means it has maximum oxygen in it. And it has been proven, like, a lot of tests have been happened that if you breathe pure air, your cognitive ability improves.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Now coming to a crucial question, I'll start with Robert, go to Mainak. Do you think consumers, and you come more from B2C, you're more than B2B, do you think as a CEO, consumers would pay, whether they're B2B customers, for a sustainable project or sustainable products that go into a project more and care for the environment, or it is always about the lowest cost?
So I think the first topic many people have to change is that business and sustainability are in contradiction to one another. They are not. They're actually very complementary. And I'll just try and give you one practical example. Since we're in Mumbai today, if you look at down city Mumbai, you will see these e-buses, double-deckers traveling around, which is charged using our charging infrastructure capabilities. If you look at the cost of those buses compared to a traditional ICE bus, then they are about 30% cheaper. So actually the consumer has, with this one example, a benefit of moving towards green than most people think. What many people forget is that usually when you look at the investment part of it, also if you buy a green car or e-car, it looks more expensive than an ICE car. But if you look at the life cycle costs, and that's the same principle over here, then you are actually economically better off. So I think if consumers actually get offerings which shift from a pure investment-based decision to a life cycle cost kind of decision, which can be facilitated by different business models, they will adopt sustainability very quickly because it makes also for them economic sense. And there are heaps of examples like the one I just now mentioned. I could go on talking, but then it will not give other people...
Beautiful example.
Yeah.
I was with a friend of mine who runs a fund. Samir knows him. He's a friend of mine, so I just called him and said, I want to come and meet him. He always is an interesting person to chat, learn, and he showed me his new build, the Chinese, it's called Build. And he said, Annurag, it's practically free. I drive this for free. It's a little more expensive. And then he gave me the maths, and clearly if you can demonstrate. And let me give you a philosophical view. The philosophical view is the quality of air at any cost should be good. I mean, if the government of India or the government of Punjab spent 20,000 crores and gave it to the farmers, the maths add up to a little less than 20,000 crores. I mean, they should do it.
Just to add to that, I mean, you mentioned it in your opening speech, but there are sufficient studies also by the World Economic Forum showing that the cost of healthcare, because of people getting cancer, all those things which come with it, yeah, are much higher than the costs you would
Forget
actually...
the cost, the quality. I mean, not everything in life has to be cost.
But even the economics would support it. That's the point I'm trying to make. So economically, it makes more sense to have clean air.
Again, I give these examples, and actually I had lots of slides on cost and all that. But Taylor Swift, as you know, she is doing $1 billion plus tour, and her tickets are sold out secondary. She just cancelled her Brazil tour. It's too hot because the fans died. So it's not like, climate change is not like, it's real. Now, coming to mine, do you think for products and services from a consumer standpoint, consumers are willing to pay more for products that come from a sustainable value chain?
Okay, so I think it's a really good question, Anurag. My belief is, I think there's two parts to it. One is, what do consumers value and what do consumers pay for? I think fundamentally, if you look at how, forget consumers. I personally don't like the word consumer because we're all human beings and our customers and consumers are all human beings. If you think about the most important choices we make in life, who we marry, who we become friends
What is our
with.
hairstyle?
Exactly, right?
Me and Mahesh have the similar hairstyle.
We don't sit down and make a spreadsheet and compare numbers. We don't. I think all of us make the most fundamental choices, and consumers, when buying brands, associating with brands, make choices not just based on a tallying of rational costs and benefits. I think so I think the core of being able to win with people and consumers, which is why I've loved being in the sector for so long, is it's about understanding human beings, understanding the values that are important to them, and storytelling in a way that resonates with their hearts and minds. So I think the core of it is understanding what is important to consumers, what is making them choose brands and choices. And I think our world has changed a lot. COVID has probably accelerated it. Awareness about the state our world is in today has accelerated it. But there's a lot of research out there in the consumer products field which says that these are now among the top needs or hierarchy of needs for consumers, even in emerging markets like India. Like there was this myth a few years ago, oh, sustainability is all for rich consumers in developed markets. There's hard consumer data that says that when I'm choosing a brand, it is important for me. That does this brand do good for the society, good for the environment? Is it biodegradable? Is it organic? These are starting to become important factors. So if you look at the personal products industry where I spent the first 15, 16 years of my career, the fastest growing segments in there are natural, organic. So I think consumers are already voting with their wallet. And how I think of it is, ultimately, not to get philosophical on you, but I think I read a lot of the similar books you do, Anurag, is if you think of what the Bhagavad Gita says, it's do your karma, do your duty. And I think duty for us as business leaders is not to worry about how much profits we'll make. That's an outcome. Right. It is to solve problems. Solve problems that are going to do good for our consumers and customers, that are going to do good for the environment and world, and find that intersection. If there's a consumer or customer problem to be solved, can we solve it in a way that makes it better for the environment? If there's an environmental problem to be solved, can we do it in a way that helps us win with our consumers? So I'll give you a couple of real examples where these solutions need not always be about more cost to consumer. So in my previous organization, we had really bulky products which used to get transported in plastic poly bags, high transportation costs, unwieldy for distributors to keep. So he said, look, we need a solution for it, and the only brief to our people we give is give us something that completely gets rid of the plastic and is completely biodegradable. So we moved to more, tightly packed biodegradable cardboard, which significantly reduced our warehousing costs, transport costs. It's better for the bottom line, but it also does good. So I think if we start with a problem-solving mindset, but say, look, we're going to solve problems that are good for consumers, good for the environment, the profits will follow. That's kind of how I approach it, rather than starting with what's the bottom line we're seeking. And I think we have amazing talent in our country. If we can rally them against solving the right problems, I think we'll all continue to meet both needs.
Okay, let me go back to Mahesh again. Mahesh, if for the next 2-3 years, you had to make some predictions about what will happen and give examples of what you're talking about. Green buildings is one manifestation. Using, recycling. We run a recycling, Priyanshi runs recycling awards in Summit. And, it's a lot about glass, there's lots of, so that's a tangible thing. Electric vehicles are tangible things. So give us, in the next 2-3 years, what are the other tangible things which are change in a demonstrable way and they make our world more sustainable?
Yeah, if I have to talk about the paints, today a green paint is not costing you more. Every paint what you buy is a green paint, and if you see there is a declaration there, it doesn't contain more than 90 ppm of lead, no heavy metals, low VOC, ultra low VOC, but the same price. That is because probably all the paint companies have joined together and we communicated this in a lot of medias, and the pricing of the raw materials also eventually came down, and today it is affordable Coming to buildings, today IGBC has Green Pro, which is the green certification for the products. 600 products are certified as Green Pro. Right from your cement, steel, paint, everything, hollow blocks, fly ash blocks, everything is certified as green. Which means while manufacturing less carbon footprint, after manufacturing, once you apply, it also emits less carbon. So eventually today you can make a green building 5% lesser than a normal building. And what is the tangible benefit out of it? Your consumption, energy consumption cost, recurring cost is lesser. And because of that, coal burned somewhere else is lesser. So you are adding on to the planet, you are helping the planet to be more sustainable. And now people ask this question whenever I go and talk, what is the government doing? Government don't have to do anything. There are green financing by banks. If you are building a green building, your financing cost is 0.5% lesser. So just imagine 0.5% of your interest rate for a period of 20 years. It's less. So it's there. And future, yes, you're going to have products like how you are now looking at a product which has nutritional values. It's going to be what is the carbon footprint it has come. I mean, you want to buy a paint which will have lesser carbon footprint, 20%, 30%. So based on that, you can make your choice. Maybe slightly more, but people are getting ready for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? Because buildings are the largest consumer of energy in cities. And if you can optimize the energy consumption in buildings, you can have huge impacts. And I can tell you, we have done many projects in Mumbai, across India, with return on invest of less than 2 years, by just taking simple measures in place, optimizing aircon, lighting and everything, you have a fantastic return on invest, and we are so confident about it that we actually tell these building operators, you don't have to invest anything, we'll invest, and the savings from it will pay for the investment we need to make. So just by people jumping on this topic, a lot can be done.
In fact, most of you know, or all of you will know that maybe about 5-6 years back, or 5 years back, we never bothered about what is the star rating of electrical equipments what we bought. Today, a common man goes and buys a 5-star rated AC. If you ask him the reason, maybe slightly more, but he knows that energy, the electricity bill will come down. Subconsciously, he's not, he must be aware of that carbon footprint, carbon impact, what is making it. But today it is the norm. Yeah, that will happen for all the products.
Samir, you have a vantage point where you're seeing new ideas. Give us some of the new ideas that you've seen that really fit into the conversation here.
Sure. Let me give you a few thoughts, actually. First is the framing of the question has to change. I think we have to move from just measuring financial returns to what is called integrated profit and loss accounting, which measures financial returns, what is the impact on natural capital, human capital, and social capital. So if you broaden the framework, that enables you to see how you make decisions in a manner that is responsible for the planet and for the people and for profit as well. By the way, the same individual, John Elkington, who came up with these terms, is now
bottom line.
Who's now saying regeneration, recirculation, and reimagination of how you think about the future is what I think should happen. One core principle that should outline sort of what we do is just the principle of resource efficiency. If you think about it, the cleanest form of energy is the energy you don't use. It's not solar. So the question is resource efficiency and energy efficiency doesn't get highlighted. You don't make front page news, but energy efficiency is actually one of the most easiest ways. Actually, motors, we have looked at switch reluctance motors, which 85% of the energy used in a building is during operations. So if you can save on energy consumption, that adds a lot to the bottom line in terms of the principles of energy. We are seeing some great ideas. We are setting, as you rightly said, to build a fund to invest in entrepreneurs and in companies that are going to solve problems for India and the world. And we are as excited as we can be. So that should tell you that, in addition to the 18 investments we already have, we are looking to add to the investments, work with these founders, And I think you're right, we can't solve the problems, but we can make an attempt to address these problems. The founder of Patagonia, who made a recent statement that if you have the resources, the ability, and the opportunity to do something good, and you don't do it, that is evil. That is his comment. So I'll end on that note.
Thank you so much. We have the presence of these leaders here. If you'd like to ask them a question, please raise your hand. A short questions. Can we get a mic to Mr. Mishra?
Thank you, Dr. Batra. If you permit, I'll just make two observations also before asking. I'm very glad that the panelists actually believe in the strength of the common consumer. And having worked for the forest and wildlife for first 15 years of my life, I have seen that if you had a forest cover of 9%, and which is now 17%, and much of the tiger conservation or biodiversity conservation which has happened in India is because of the local community. And that is something which has not happened anywhere in the world. The same is now happening with regard to mobility, which few people have talked about. Like in Delhi, if whatever consumption which has gone down of two-wheelers, because that was a taboo topic in my petition, basically the two-wheelers were exempted. And they were exempted because of the political reasons. But voluntarily today, 40 to 50% of shifting on electric scooters and
for two-wheelers.
40% has already shifted. I'll give you my own example. In my office, two scooters are being used for electric. You don't have to raise bills on the daily basis for fuel. You don't have to clear all those invoices. It has to be charged. The cost has gone down, which was very rightly pointed out. I think I have to ask you that, and Samir has been talking about it very regularly, we need more stories about these things, especially about the city which we saw today. If we can have resilient, sustainable cities, and we can tell this story, in BW is taking a greater step. If all the companies start taking one story forward, those stories will be something which will change consumer behavior. Thank you.
I'll just make one observation. I think we should go for EVs and the green electric, EVs. But at the same time, I think CEW came up with a report that the thermal efficiency of coal plants in India is 29.7% versus a global average of 40%. There are many factors to it. But improving thermal efficiency is as important, because unless you green the grid, EVs are not green if you calculate the full cost, actually. I mean, there's a concept of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. So it's perhaps improper to compare ICE, where the production and consumption of energy happens on the spot. Whereas in an EV, yes, you're not polluting, but you have shifted the point of consumption and the point of production. So unless you green the grid, the greenness of an EV is something that needs to be balanced. And I think one needs to focus also on efficiency of coal-fired plants. Still, we are going to use coal because as
a huge base.
Within a huge base. Water usage in coal-fired plants in India is 2x the global standard. So these are measures of efficiency, going back to resource efficiency, that don't make headlines, but are equally important in addressing issues. And these are the kind of companies that we are trying to fund.
Thank you. We could go on fast, but closing comment in one line. What is that one leap forward? What is that one big leap? We'll start with you, Robert, and we'll go around the whole.
Mindset.
Mainak?
I think sharing stories with employees.
So raising the consciousness by steering. Samir?
Increase awareness.
Okay. And Mahesh?
I also believe that increasing awareness and building stories, just a news may not attract people, but if a story will attract people. I think media has to play a role in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Finally, everything that happens in the world, we lost the finals, media has a role to play. I think media has a role to play in everything. And we'll continue to play our role. But on a serious note, please give this lovely panel a big round of applause. And they made very specific inputs and gave examples and made the conversation real and authentic. So thank you, Mahesh, Samir, Robert, and Mainak for doing it. Give a bigger round of applause.